There are 36 brand new legendary creatures coming in Secrets of Strixhaven, so in this video we're going to check out all of them and rank them in an internet-friendly tier list. At the top we've got Tomer favorites. These are my personal favorites from the set. I like them so much that I'm either going to showcase some new brews around them, either on Commander Clash or a separate video, or if I really love the card, I might even include it in my personal Commander collection, either leading a brand new deck or in the 99 of a pre-existing one. Under that, we've got Great in the Command Zone. I think these are legendary creatures that are better suited leading a deck rather than in the 99. Then we've got Great in the 99, exact opposite. I think these legendary creatures are better suited in the 99 rather than leading a deck. Then we've got the Maybe pile. These are legendary creatures that might have some potential, might have some synergies that are really interesting in Commander, but I can't name them off the top of my head, and maybe in the comment section you have better brews around them than I do. And then finally, we got the F. These are the fails. These are the, you got to take this course again. Sorry. Usually these are like, commons or uncommons that are made for limited environments and stuff like that, and maybe not made for Commander. But yeah, they'll get the failing grade over here. We're starting alphabetically, so we're starting with Abigail, Poet Laureate. So this is the uncommon version of Abigail. It's a 3-mana Orzhov legendary creature bird bard. It's a 2/3 with flying, and whenever you cast a spell, Abigail becomes prepared, which is a brand new mechanic coming in Strixhaven. It says, while it's prepared, you may cast a copy of its spell. Doing so unprepares it, and the spell that it can cast while prepared is Heroic Stanza. It's 2 mana, 1 an Orzhov hybrid for a sorcery. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Now, I was immediately going to write off this uncommon version of Abigail because, it's a 3-drop that doesn't do anything by itself, and then the sorcery that it casts when prepared is not very exciting, right? 2 mana sorcery speed to get a counter on something, not the best. However, I am kind of intrigued by its design. It does get prepared very easily. If you're in a creature-heavy deck, Abigail's going to be prepared whenever you want it to be, essentially, and Heroic Stanza isn't very impressive, but it does do something in like a Counters Matters deck, and it's just 2 mana, so you can possibly spam it out, especially if you have like cost reducers or something like that. So while it's not very impressive, the fact that it does constantly get prepared, and it's like this kind of like sorcery engine, an engine to get counters on things, yeah, it costs a little bit too much mana to do so, and yeah, you need to keep casting creatures in order to do Heroic Stanza. Yeah, it's not the best, but there might be something here. So Abigail is the first maybe to me. It's very intriguing. It's not mana efficient, but it is a really interesting engine, and there might be some cool homes for her. Next, we got another kind of narrow, interesting uncommon with Arnian Deathbloom Botanist. It's a 3-mana black legendary creature vampire druid. It's a 2/2 with Death Touch, and whenever a creature you control with power or toughness 1 or less dies, target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So this is essentially like a Blood Artist, or like a Zulaport Cutthroat, one of those two things where it only counts whenever your creatures are dying, and then you get to drain a target opponent. So it's like in between a Zulaport Cutthroat and a Blood Artist here. It has a larger restriction and doesn't count all creatures, but rather only creatures with power or toughness 1 or less. But if you're in like an Aristocrat's Shell, that isn't too difficult to trigger, right? Like if you're in Aristocrats in black, typically you're running stuff like Pawn of Ulamog, or like the bigger version of that I'm blanking on the name, because whenever you're sacrificing things, you poop out 1/1s, if you're making thralls and stuff. There's a lot of ways in Aristocrats already to pump out a bunch of creatures that fit Arnin's criteria. So I don't think it's going to be that difficult to trigger her in a lot of pre-existing shells. The thing is, though, it's only draining for 2 for this extra step that you have to jump through. She costs 1 extra mana over like a Blood Artist or a Zulaport Cutthroat. So will she make the cut in the 99 of these Aristocrats deck, given the fact that she costs a little bit more and she has a little bit more of a restriction to her death trigger? I'm not quite sure. It is interesting, though, that she can be leading a Commander deck. So I guess if you're, I don't know, budget conscious and you want to make like an ultra cheap Aristocrat Aristocrats deck, Arnon could be kind of interesting there. Like, obviously, something like Sephiroth does the exact same thing as Arnon is doing, but like 10 times better. But on the flip side, I think Sephiroth's like $50 or more, and Arnon's going to be like 10 cents and is like a random draft chap uncommon. So there is some potential here. I just don't know if she's good enough to warrant including or maybe building like a budget brew around. So she's kind of like a maybe for me, unless you happen to be in an Aristocrats deck that already is just pooping out 1/1s and doesn't really have larger creatures that it's normally sacrificing. Then it could potentially be great. I think it's still going to be worse than like Azulapur Cutthroat, but I don't know. The drain of 2 is pretty significant and can kill specific opponents faster than like a Blood Artist could. So I don't know. I'm going to put it greater than 99. I could be wrong. Augusta Order Returned is a 3-mana white legendary creature Spirit Advisor. It's a 1/3 with flying vigilance. And whenever it attacks, each player exiles a card from the graveyard. Whenever one or more non-land cards are exiled this way, put that many +1/+1 counters on target attacking creature. So Augusta is doing kind of the lore hold mechanic. Lore hold in this set in particular really cares about cards leaving its own graveyard and rewarding you for doing so. And Augusta is an interesting way of doing that. It grows attacking creatures. It could even grow herself. It triggers the leave the graveyard stuff that Lorehold really wants. And it's also doubling as repeat graveyard hate against your opponent's strategies. I think it's a little bit clunky. Sometimes you only have things in your graveyard that you don't want to exile, and it's not a may. So if you attack with her, you have to do it. So I guess you sometimes just don't attack with her, which kind of sucks because sometimes you want to exile your opponent's stuff, but not necessarily your own stuff. I don't know. That's probably not going to happen very often in a dedicated Lorehold deck, but it's something to keep in mind. But yeah, if you are interested in things leaving the graveyard, I think Augusta's a really great and interesting way of doing so. She's growing threats. She has flying and vigilance, so she can attack very easily. And if you're growing herself, she has vigilance, so she can become an excellent blocker as well, so people can't just swing back at you. And you're messing up other graveyard strategies, and you're triggering your own Lorehold stuff. So I think that's all great. I don't think she's great as a commander. I think it's just kind of a little bit too restrictive there. But in a Lorehold deck, a deck that actually cares about stuff leaving your graveyard all the time, Augusta's a really, really great option there. So Augusta, definitely great in the 99. It's definitely like specific to Lorehold, but in that shell, she's going to be awesome. Next, we've got a really exciting new Boros commander. This is Aziza Mage Tower Captain. It's just 2 mana, a red and a white, for a legendary creature, Djinn Sorcerer. It's a 2/2, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may tap 3 untapped creatures you control. If you do copy that spell, you may choose new targets for the copy. So on a 2-drop, this can potentially copy all your instants and sorceries for the low cost of tapping 3 untapped creatures you control. And that includes herself. Like, as long as you have a bunch of creatures on the battlefield, all those instant sorceries are going to get copied. That has a lot of power behind it. The free copy is essentially a free spell, like card advantage and mana advantage, because you get to cast it for free, or copy it for free in this case. This power potential is really, really strong, especially if you build around her. She really wants to be in a go wide token strategy. You want to be focusing a lot on instants and sorceries that can generate creature tokens, specifically ones that can make 3 or more. There's a couple out there that's like, pay 3 mana, you make 3 creature tokens. I'm blanking all the names, but you want to load up on the most efficient ways of doing that with Aziza, and then you can start copying some really, really cool spells with your big creature token army. So obviously, there's going to be finishers. You can run like overrun type effects. In Aziza, there's one really cool one where like you exile an instant sorcery from your graveyard. All your creatures get +X+0, where X is its mana value, and then you swing out. And if you deal combat damage with any of those creatures, you get to cast the exiled spell for every single time it deals combat damage. It's super, super fun. One of my favorite cards. It also, things that have additional costs that are negative, you bypass by copying them, because you're not actually casting the spell, you're just copying the spell. So she works really well with like Unexpected Windfall, for example, because an additional casting cost is discarding a card to draw 2 and make 2 treasures. Well, with Aziza, if you're copying the spell, you don't have to discard a card. So all you're doing when you're copying the spell is you're just drawing another 2 and making another 2 treasures. So there's a lot of really cool things you can do with Aziza, but you're going to be definitely wanting to put her in the command zone because she's 2 mana. So she comes out super early, and she's definitely a build around, and her power potential is really, really high. It's go wide tokens, but it's a focus on Spellslinger and copying things, and it looks super fun to play. I love Spellslinger. I love copying spells, so this is an easy Tomer favorite from me. I don't know if I'm going to actually be playing it on Commander Clash ever. Spoiler alert for an upcoming video, but I think this week's Commander Clash is going to be Secrets of Strixhaven, and Seth played Aziza. You're definitely going to want to watch that video because she is very impressive in that. I'm not going to spoil what happens, but she's very impressive. Definitely maybe a budget brew I could build around her. I don't know. She's definitely one of the most exciting new commanders, in my opinion, from the set. Next up is Berta, Wise Extrapolator. It's a 4-mana Simic legendary creature, Frog Druid. It's a 1/4 with Increment. Increment is a new Quandrix mechanic in the set, the blue-green one. Whenever you cast a spell, if the amount of mana you spent is greater than this creature's power or toughness, you put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So it's kind of like Evolve. It's like a new take of Evolve, where instead of caring about like the power of creatures entering the battlefield to get counters on it, you care about spells being cast, and if you spent more mana, then you get counters on it. It's a cool twist. And then whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on Berta, add 1 mana of any color. That's really cool. And then you could pay X, tap, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token, and put X +1/+1 counters on it. Oof. This card has a lot going on. So just let's baseline, you play this and then you cast big spells. You just want to be casting spells that are bigger than Berta is. And then she grows, and whenever she grows, she refunds you some mana. And then you can use that mana to just dump out huge creatures. And yeah, that seems fun. That seems fun. I feel like there is combo potential here, but I don't know which cards are going to be pairing with her. Like, if you can like put a +1/+1 counter on Berta for 1 mana, then you have an infinite loop of like just growing Berta infinite times and making infinite counters on her. I don't know if there is a way of doing that in Magic, but you let me know in the comment section. This is a very interesting card. I don't know what to do with her, though. Obviously, Berta cares about +1/+1 counters. She generates mana. She makes big tokens. There's all like these interesting things to do with her, but I don't know if she's better in the command zone or in the 99. I'm going to say great in the 99, but I could definitely be proven wrong. And maybe she's just actually more powerful in the command zone. If there's like some crazy combos of her, let me know in the comment section. Next, we've got Blech, Loafing Pest. This is a 3-mana black-green legendary creature pest. It's a 3/4, and whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on each pest, bat, insect, snake, and spider you control. Now, okay. I love Blech. He's adorable. I love the name. It's hilarious. I love that it's like a lord for pests. That's fun. Pests are all about when they get sacrificed, you gain 1 life. And in the case of Witherbloom, with the return set, Secrets of Strixhaven, there's a lot of pests that when they attack, they gain a life instead. And that's where Blech is actually a little bit better, because the standard set pests are all about attacking and gaining life and not sacrificing them. And you definitely don't want to be sacrificing your pets if you're growing them with +1/+1 counters, unless, there's a reason to. But yeah, I love this cute little guy. I don't know if he's good, but I would definitely build a deck around him. He's adorable. I want a plushie of him. I love Blech. I don't know if he's good. I don't know if you would put him in non-pest decks either. I don't know if you wouldn't put him in the 99 or something instead of the command zone. I don't care. He's adorable. Tomer favorites. Next, we got one of the face commanders of the Strixhaven precons. This is Dina, Essence Brewer. It's a 3-mana black-green legendary creature, Dryad Druid. It's a 2/3 with whenever you sacrifice a creature, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn, and you can pay 2 mana, tap, and sacrifice another creature. You gain X life and put X +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, where X is a sacrificed creature's power. So, first and foremost, Dino, card draw engine for an aristocrat strategy. You ideally want to be sacrificing a creature on not just your turn, but each opponent's turn. And if you do so in a 4-player free-for-all game, you're drawing 4 cards per turn cycle, up to 4 per turn cycle, which is very, very good. Even low-end expectations, if you're just like sacrificing a creature on your turn once per turn, that's a 3-drop that draws once each turn. That's fine. That's pretty good even. And then on top of that, she has that activated ability. You sacrifice things to gain life and then grow things. And then you sacrifice the thing you just grew and then you make something else bigger. So there are synergy potentials of like power matters with +1/+1 counters and potentially even life gain matters. She does a little bit of everything, but the main thing that she does the best is just draw cards. Yeah, I feel like her static draw card trigger kind of overshadows the more interesting part of her, where you're sacrificing things and you care about, life gain and you care about counters and you care about power. Like, I feel like that's a little bit more different. I guess we've seen that a lot in Golgari colors already too, of like the Gitrog and Genova and whatnot, but I don't know, just like a generic trigger of just like, when you sacrifice, you draw a card. I find that a little bit boring. Is it powerful though? It's definitely powerful. It's a definitely powerful card. It's, not treading in new grounds, really. Like, we've seen that with like Gitrog, Ravenous Ride, and I think that's still way stronger than Dina. Possibly even Genova's way stronger than Dina. But this is a more chill version. It draws cards a little bit slower. It doesn't ramp like crazy like the Gitrog monster, but it does some cool things. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know about this one. I think it's very, very powerful. So yeah, I think this is a great build around, but you also wouldn't go wrong by just throwing it in the 99 of any like Golgari based deck that can repeatedly sacrifice things on not just your turn, but your opponent's turn. And pretty much every like sacrifice deck can do that. Again, if you're like pooping out Eldrazi spawns with Pawn of Ulamog or whatever, they even sacrifice themselves. It's super, super easy to get her trigger. So yeah, really, really great commander, really, really powerful. We've got another uncommon legendary with Emil, Vastlands Roamer. It's a 3-mana green legendary creature elf druid. It's a 3/3. Creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them have trample, and you can pay 5 mana, tap, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token, put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of differently named lanes you control. Okay, so this is kind of like a Field of the Dead type payoff, I guess, but also cares about +1/+1 counters. Interesting design space. Like, you want to be in a +1/+1 counters deck because then you just play Emil, and then Emil, you get some value. All your creatures now have trample, and if they're big, that's great. And then the activated ability, it costs a lot of mana. You have to wait a turn to use it if you even want to, because 5 mana is a lot. But it could potentially make a really big fractal token, right? If you are in a deck that is basically a Field of the Dead deck where you want to have basically every single lane be a different name, if you have like 10 or more lanes on the battlefield, paying 5 mana to just poop out a 10/10 at instant speed is pretty strong. Ain't bad, but it is a little bit slow, and the passive ability isn't that amazing, and you probably want to be in a counters deck to really take advantage of it. I don't know. This one is fine. Like, you could put it in a Field of the Dead deck. Maybe you put it in like a Gates deck too, or a Towns deck. Like, it's never going to be amazing in any of the decks, but like, if it's a budget inclusion, it could be fine. I don't know. I'll just throw it in at the bottom end of great in the 99. Okay, the next uncommon commander. Oh, apparently we have a lot of uncommon commanders. It's Ennis, a Debate Moderator. It's 2 mana white, legendary creature, human cleric. It's a 1/1. When it enters, exile up to 1 other target creature you control. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So a little bit of a flicker going on. At the beginning of your end step, if one or more cards are put into exile this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Ennis. So it's a 2 mana flicker. That's not terrible on its own, and it grows each end step. Like, on the first turn, it becomes a 2/2. So that's okay, and it keeps growing from there. So if you have any like counter synergy, there's a little bit more potential over there. 2 mana flicker, I guess that's fine. I guess some decks would actually want that. It's not like super exciting or anything. I probably wouldn't want to put it in the command zone. But I don't know, a 2-drop that flickers isn't the worst. It gets some counters slowly too, so why not? All right, and I'll be generous again. I'll put it in greater than 99. It's probably a maybe, but I don't know. 2-drop that flickers. That can't be the worst, right? Next, we've got the secondary commander for the Lorehold Precon deck. It's Excava, the Risen Pass. It's a 4-mana Boros legendary creature spirit horse. It's a 3/3 with flying haste, and whenever it attacks, return up to 1 target artifact, creature, or non-aura enchantment card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. It's a 1/1 spirit creature with flying in addition to its other types. So, Excava is kind of like a variant on Sun Titan, right? Sun Titan can reanimate things mana value 3 or less on attack trigger. Obviously, there's key differences. Sun Titan is 6 mana, but it is an enter the battlefield and attack trigger. So if you have like haste, for example, you can get both at the same time. It doesn't have flying, so sometimes it's a little bit awkward to attack with the Sun Titan. It is a 6/6 with vigilance, which is nice, but like, sometimes you can't attack into anybody profitably, and that's a little bit awkward. Sun Titan can get back any permanent, though, and Excava is only restricted to artifact creatures and non-aura enchantments. And it turns it into a 1/1 spirit creature with flying, which can sometimes be good, sometimes bad, depending on, do you want a 1/1 spirit? In a deck like Excava, this kind of pushes it towards like a spirits mattering style deck, I can imagine. If you're a deck that rewards you for having a bunch of spirits, Excava can return things as spirits. And also it comes with a finality counter on it. Some people really hate finality counters. It definitely messes with like recursion loops if you care about recurring the same thing over and over again. But if you're just like recurring something with value and you don't really care if you're to recur it again later on in the game, which is 99% of the times when I'm reanimating something, finality counters is not a deal breaker to me. So overall, I think this card is pretty interesting. I think it is interesting as a commander if you are doing something with the fact that, there's spirits that are being reanimated. Like if you're doing like something spirity, that's really cool. I guess just having a commander that is like a mini Sun Titan-esque effect too is interesting. Like you can't put Sun Titan in the command zone. So Excava, 4 mana, costs less, has evasion. It's a horse, There's things to build around here that make it very intriguing to me. I don't know if I'd prefer it in the 99 or the command zone, but I think it's going to be great either way. I feel like Excava is going to be better in the command zone than the 99. I think it's great in the 99 of a bunch of decks, as long as you're in a Boros deck that, cares about having stuff in the graveyard and cares about reanimating them. I think Excava is going to be great there. But the fact that Excava is doing so many little things and is so particular about them, like caring about spirits, caring about specific types of permanents that it's reanimating, I feel like it's probably more of a build around. And yeah, I can imagine this being the leader of like a graveyard Boros spirits deck. That sounds really cool to me. Oh my goodness, we actually have another pest commander. I'm in love. Okay, this is Gorma the Gullet. It's a 3-mana black-green legendary creature, pest frog. Love it. It's a 1/1 with lifelink. Whenever another creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Gorma. Non-token creatures you control enter with an additional +1/+1 counter on them for each creature that died under your control this turn. So Gorma gets really, really big. It's a 3-drop. It starts as a 1/1, really small. But as long as creatures are dying, it doesn't care if it's tokens or non-tokens. It's going to load up on counters. It's going to be a big old lifelinker. I love to see that. And then when you're casting creature spells after sacrificing one or more things, they got a bunch of free counters on them as well. All right, so I'm in love with Gorma for various reasons. First and foremost, it's a pest. It's a pest commander, and I think pests are adorable. And this is a pest commander that specifically works very well with the pests that want to sacrifice themselves. This is a reward for doing so. The other one that we saw is a reward for like standard pests that want to be attacking and reward you for doing that. And Gorma is for the older version of pests from the original Strixhaven and the Commander products, the ones that want to be sacrificing them. So they're very different, but they're both, good support options for pests. And this one's more open-ended too, obviously. And it also is a value engine in the fact that it gives a bunch of counters on things. So if you're in a deck that cares about counters or cares about gaining life, lots of life, because it could potentially smack people for a lot of damage and gain a bunch of life in the process, Gorma is great for that. But it does so in a way that is very different from like 2026 commander design, where everything has to draw cards and ramp to be good. Gorma is good without having to be card advantage or mana advantage. It is definitely a good payoff. It's a cool engine type thing, but it's not a value engine in the sense of like being card advantage or mana advantage, which is honestly pretty rare in 2026. In Commander design these days, everything has to draw cards, everything has to ramp because that's the best thing to do in Commander. And it's just kind of like a breath of fresh air to me, at least, when you see a cool Commander that it looks powerful, but isn't tied to drawing cards and ramping and stuff like that. And it's a pest. It's a cool pest frog. Oh, I love it. All right, Gorma, top of the Tomer favorites. So I'm going to have to definitely brew around you. You and Blech, you're giving me life right now. Next up, we have Jadzi, Steward of Fate. This is a new version of Jadzi. It's mono blue, so 3 mana blue legendary creature human wizard. It enters prepared, and when it enters, draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards, and it's a 2/4. And the spell that it can cast when prepared is Oracle's Gift. XX in a blue sorcery. Create X 0/0 green and blue fractal creature tokens. Then put X+1/+1 counters on each fractal you control. Whoa, this is actually pretty good. If you have a lot of mana and you can dump it into Oracle's Gift, that's pretty good. It doesn't get prepared by itself or anything. It just enters prepared, so you'd have to like blink it or bounce it or whatever to get it prepared again. But I don't know. That ETB, a little bit of card filtering, and then I don't think you'd need to cast Oracle's Gift more than once. If you have the mana for it, you could just dump the huge fractal army onto the battlefield, and that's usually enough. I really like this as like just a big mana dumper that ends the game in a cool way with fractals, and fractals are cool. Yeah, I really like this. I don't think it's a commander. I think it's probably better in the 99 as like a pseudo finisher. Like obviously the fractals that she makes don't have haste or anything. So unless you already have a bunch of fractals on the battlefield already, she's not going to be acting as like an overrun or anything. But if you can generate a lot of mana and then dump it all into Oracle's Gift and then maybe give them haste somehow, that's very impressive. I like this card a lot. So Jadzi, I think, is great in the 99 of big mana X spell decks. So like Zimone and stuff. And like fractal decks and stuff like that. Next, we've got the face commander for the black-white auras deck, the Silver Quill deck, Killian, Decisive Mentor. It's a 3 mana black-white legendary creature human warlock. It's a 2/3. Whenever an enchantment you control enters, tap up to 1 target creature and goad it. And whenever one or more creatures that are enchanted by an aura you control attack, draw a card. So Killian already gives you a huge payoff for just playing a bunch of enchantments. You don't have to cast them. They just have to enter. They don't have to be auras. They can be any type of enchantment. As long as they're entering, you get to tap down potential blockers that your opponents control and goad them. So not only can they no longer block you, or whatever, your mutual allies, you tap down any potential blockers, and then on their turn, they got to swing in, but not at you. So they have to swing into mutual opponents, either losing their creature because it's a small creature and it dies to blockers, or it just deals a lot of damage to your opponents, which is just furthering your own game plan because you want to lower everybody's life total to 0 that isn't you. So this is great for that. And then on top of that, and more importantly, obviously, 2026 design, Killian is also an impressive draw engine. It's limited to 1 card draw per turn, but if every person on the table has a creature that is enchanted by an aura you control and it's attacking, like if it's goaded, for example, you're going to be drawing a card for each person. So again, 4-player free-for-all game, Killian can draw you up to 4 cards per turn cycle, which is very, very good on a 3-drop, and very, very doable because Killian very much encourages you to go full on auras. You want to just load up on auras. You want to enchant one of your own creatures, and then you want to start enchanting one of each of your opponent's creatures. Those creatures get tapped down so they can't block, and then they must be attacking, and then when they attack, you draw a card, and then you just rinse repeat. You can just cast more auras on your creatures and your opponent's creatures. They're goaded. They keep hitting each other for even more and more damage because auras enhance them, and yeah, it's a very, very powerful strategy. Because of this, I think Killian is going to be one of, if not the most popular aura commander. His ability is just very powerful. It's an incredible draw engine, an incredible goad engine, tapping down engine, super, super mana efficient for what he's doing. And if you look at EDH Rec, the second most popular Orzhov commander is currently Ariete of the Charmed Apple, which is also an aura commander that also is kind of political / pillow fort where your opponents can't attack you if they're enchanted by auras you control. And Killian does the exact same style of thing, just forcing your opponents not to attack you and enchanting your opponent's creatures, but takes it to the next level because now they're goaded instead of they can't attack you. And you draw cards on top of it instead of draining life. So Killian's just an upgrade. So if Ariet's that popular and Killian's even more powerful than her, I just imagine Killian is going to be really, really popular in the coming months. So Killian is definitely great in the command zone. It's an incredibly powerful face commander. You have access to white, which is the primary color for auras. The secondary color is probably green, just because green is one of the primary colors for Enchantress. And so if he was Selesnya colors, he'd be even more overpowered. But just, having access to white is more than enough for all the most powerful aura support cards, and his abilities are so strong. Next, we have the uncommon version of Kyrol History Buff. It's a 2-mana, red-white legendary creature, vampire cleric. It's a 2/3. Whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, Kyrol becomes prepared. So again, really easy to prepare this card. And then the spell it can cast is Pack-a-Punch. It's a 3-mana Boros sorcery. Mill a card, put 2+1/+1 counters on target creature. It gains trample until end of turn. So similar to Abigail, Kyrol kind of just turns on, becomes prepared very, very easily. It's a 2-drop, so it comes down pretty quick too. And then the spell it casts is not super impactful, definitely not worth 3 mana on its own. But the fact that you can keep casting it over and over again, Kyrol's going to be basically prepared all the time in the right deck being a Lorehold deck that is just constantly removing cards from the graveyard to trigger, payoffs like Kyrol itself. That's pretty interesting. And also Pack-a-Punch is also kind of working into the main strategy of Lorehold too, because it is milling, right? So you mill a card, that's another card you can potentially remove from your graveyard, which will trigger Kyrol in the future and stuff. So that's all pretty impressive. Still though, at the end of the day, the spell you're casting for 3 mana, not that super powerful or anything. But the fact that it's a 2-drop and it constantly becomes prepared, and it's also furthering the main game plan of the deck or Lorehold, where you're just trying to put stuff in the graveyard and then remove stuff from the graveyard. I don't know. This is a maybe for me. Kyrol is not the most mana efficient at what it's doing, but it is very consistent at what it's doing, and maybe that's enough. I'm expecting this uncommon that gets prepared follows the same line as Abigail and Kyrol. It's Lowen Exchange Student. It's a 4-mana, black-green, a legendary creature elf druid. It's a 3/4. It enters prepared, and you can exile a creature card from your graveyard. It becomes prepared, activate only as a sorcery. Yep. Okay. So yep, just like the other ones, it gets prepared incredibly easily. And then the spell it casts is just 1 mana. It's Pest Friend, Golgari hybrid sorcery. You can create a 1/1 black and green pest creature token with whenever this token attacks, you gain a life. It costs more mana up front. It's 4 mana instead of like 2 or 3, but the spell that it casts is the cheapest we've seen. It's just 1 mana. You have to exile creature cards from your graveyard, so that can be a little bit annoying compared to the other ones where you don't have to take away any resources from yourself. This one requires you to strip away some creature cards from your graveyard, so that's a little bit clunky. But again, Pest Friend is pretty good for 1 mana, just making that 1/1 constantly. That seems pretty fun to me. I don't know. This one I feel like has the most potential out of all of them, just because the Pest Friend spell is probably the most okay-ish out of all the prepared spells we've seen so far. Though, she costs more mana to cast, and getting her prepared is a little bit more clunky. But at least she enters prepared too, so I don't know. Maybe this one's another maybe for me. But I am intrigued by all these uncommons. I feel like all of them are like borderline pretty good. All right, next up we have the first of the Elder Dragon cycle. All of these are super hype and super powerful. The first one, the Boros one, Lorehold one, rather, should put some respect on the name. It's Lorehold, the Historian. It's a 5-mana, red-white, legendary creature Elder Dragon. It's a 5/5 flying haste. Each instant and sorcery card in your hand has Miracle 2. Miracle, old mechanic, it says you may cast a card for its miracle cost when you draw it if it's the first card you drew this turn. So the first card you draw on your own turn, on your draw step, usually, will have Miracle if it's an instant or sorcery. But if you draw a card on an opponent's turn, and it's the first one you drew, then You can also trigger Miracle. You can also cast an instant sorcery on your opponent's turn. And yes, it does get around timing restrictions. So if you trigger Miracle on a sorcery on your opponent's turn, you can cast it immediately, like the turn the Miracle thing happens, despite, usually sorceries being sorcery speed. Anyway, that's how Miracle works. So instant sorceries in your hand have Miracle. And then at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. So hey, look at that. It's making sure you're drawing a card on each opponent's upkeep, maximizing the number of times you're going to be triggering Miracle. That's pretty rad. So Lorehold really wants you to load up on really big, splashy instants and sorceries. The bigger, the better, like Soulfire Eruption and stuff like that. Things that are ludicrously large mana value, usually large to cast, rather. And Lorehold gives you a massive discount on them. The bigger they are, the flashier they are, the more of a mana discount you get, because it's always going to be just 2 mana. So that's step 1 in building the deck. Step 2 is making sure that the first card you're drawing each turn is going to be these big flashy spells. And there's a couple ways of doing that. There's a couple cards that can put stuff on top of your library. One being Scroll Rack. It puts cards from your hand on top of your library, and then you can make sure that it's going to be miracled whenever you want it to. And there's other cards like Library of Leng, where you can discard a card and then put it on top of your library instead, and then you draw it, and then blah, 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 boom. It's now miracled as well, too. So there's a lot of little finicky things you can be doing with Lorehold to make sure you're constantly miracling. And then you pair that with big flashy spells, and bada bum, you got a big, flashy, impressive Boros Spellslinger deck, which is very cool. It's definitely a build around, but it's definitely also very much worth building around, and it's going to be 100% kill on sight, because nobody's going to let you just free cast big haymakers, because you're probably going to win the game super fast. So either your opponents stop you, or you're probably going to win in short order. So Lorehold is definitely a kill on sight arch enemy style commander. But you know what? If you're playing high powered, you're bracket 4 or something like that, that sounds like a great time to me. I love Spellslinger decks. I love especially cheating out huge, massive, battle cruisery Spellslinger decks. So this definitely speaks to me. Lorehold, very, very exciting for me as well. Okay, so this random looking uncommon is actually possibly the commander I am most hype about from the entire set. Behold, Mika, Reader of Ruins. This is a 4-mana red legendary creature human artificer. It's a 4/4 with ward pay 3 life, which is whatever in Commander, it doesn't matter. But whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may sacrifice an artifact. If you do, copy that spell and you may choose new targets for the copy. So, you may not know this, but I am a huge mono red fan. I love mono red, and as I've mentioned before, I love Spellslinger. I love instants and sorceries. I love mono red. I also love Izzet too. I just love going Spellslinger, and I've been kind of obsessed with making mono red as powerful as possible, especially trying to showcase its power and getting around its weaknesses on Commander Clash especially. And the most success I've had with mono red recently, my biggest obsession, is playing mono red as draw go control, loading up on instant interaction, especially copy abilities. My favorite spell in red right now has to be, without a doubt, Return the Favor, because you can either copy powerful instants or sorceries, you can redirect things, so you can redirect like powerful targeted removal, and you can 2-for-1 your opponents, activate abilities too. That's super fun, but also like other copy effects like Reverberate or whatever. I love all these cards, and I've been seeing a lot of success with them. And Mika shows up, and I think is the first ever mono red commander that just takes all the things that I love doing in mono red instant wise and just makes them all 10 times better. Being able to copy instant sorceries is just super fun because, like I said before, it allows you to double up on the effectiveness of spells like Big Score, where you're not copying the cast ability, the cast requirement of requiring you to discard a card because you're just copying the spell, you're not casting it. So if you copy a Big Score with this, you're discarding a card, but then you're drawing 4 cards and making 4 treasures for 4 mana. That's kind of amazing with Mika's ability. The cost of copying is just sacrificing an artifact, which is basically nothing in mono red these days, and in fact can become a huge upside. There's a lot of artifacts that have enter the battlefield and leave the battlefield triggers, or like, death style triggers. There's a cycle of 2 drops that are like ETB, you get something, and then when it leaves, you also get the same thing. There's one that makes treasures, there's one that draws cards, there's one that like makes lanes, fetches lanes for you and stuff like that. And there's also like a bunch of artifacts that have like either an enter the battlefield trigger that then just sits around, you know? So you can run all of those, and then you just sacrifice them constantly to Mika, generating more value out of those artifacts, and then you're copying all your cool spells, and then maybe you're making more treasures and stuff, and then you can sacrifice the extra treasures to Mika's ability and copy even more things. Blah, blah, blah. This card's incredible for an uncommon. Yeah, it's 4 mana, so, you know, in mono red, it's a little bit expensive, I suppose, and the ward doesn't really help you at all in Commander because pay 3 life is nothing. But, man, this is exactly what I wanted. Exactly what I want. I've been building so many mono red Drago Spellslinger decks without a commander that really helps the strategy, and now finally we get one with Mika, and I'm so happy. Okay, so here we go. This is my favorite. This is my favorite one. It's my favorite one in the set, I'm telling you right now. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe there's another one that I really like, but this is my favorite so far, at least. And I guess the Tomer favorite section is getting a little bit too bloated. So Aziza, as cool as Aziza is, I'm going to downgrade her to great in the command zone because there's only so many new legendaries I can brew around right now. Next, we got Mosio Vane's New Dean. Oh, the art is so sick on this one, actually. Okay, this is a 3 mana black legendary creature, bird skeleton warlock. It's a 2/1 of flying. When it enters, create a 1/1 black and green pest creature token with whenever this token attacks, you gain 1 life. And Infusion, which is a new Witherbloom mechanic. At the beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, return up to 1 target creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. So Mosio is a very sweet life gain payoff. It's a 3-drop that could potentially reanimate every single end step, including the turn you cast it. Obviously, you have to gain enough life to reanimate the things you want, but in a life gain deck, that is pretty trivial. You can gain a ton of life and constantly reanimate with Mosio's ability. Yeah, that's a lot of potential. Also, it gets even better if you're in like a graveyard style deck where you can fill your graveyard with options. So at any given time, you'll always have a target to reanimate with Mosio's ability. And if you skew lower mana value, you're more likely to always have a target. Like you don't have to gain that much life to reanimate whatever you want if everything's low mana value. So there is definitely some build around potential here, but I think Mosio is just incredible. It's really mana efficient. It can start reanimating the turn it enters the battlefield because it's an end step trigger. And all you have to do so is just gain life, which is very easy to do. Yeah, that's a lot of value for a 3-drop. Is it better in the 99 or the command zone? It's an interesting commander for sure, but I feel like it would definitely be just easier to find a home for in the 99 than you maybe are in Witherbloom colors or in white or something like that, where you can really gain life super easily. And this is just like your graveyard reanimation in the 99, but you could definitely build around it too. So mostly I'm going to say great in the 99. It's definitely great in the command zone too, but I think 99 is probably where it's more likely to show up. And I think the art is incredible. Okay, here's another one of my favorite new commanders. Apparently, I really like Strixhaven, and I really like the new legendaries because Muddle the Ever-Changing is another one of my favorites. It's a 4-mana blue-red legendary creature, elemental otter shapeshifter. It's a 3/3 that says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Muddle becomes a copy of up to 1 target non-legendary creature you control until end of turn, except it has Myriad. So the idea with Muddle is it's definitely a build around. You have to put it in the command zone. If you put it in the 99, it's going to be very difficult to find a home that already fits it. But if it's your commander, if you run a bunch of cheap instants and sorceries, like 1-mana instant sorceries to copy your other creatures, and you're in a deck filled with really cool non-legendary creatures that have a lot of synergy with Myriad, Muddle becomes super fun. For example, if you copy, Professional Facebreaker with a cheap instant sorcery, then you go swinging with Muddle, you make a bunch of Myriad triggers. If they all connect, you make like a bajillion treasures. I don't know how many they are off the top of my head. It's very late today, so I'm not going to do the math, but it's a lot. It's a lot of treasures. Or if you for example, copy a Mull Drifter, for example, you swing out with Muddle, you get 2 Mull Drifters coming into the battlefield battlefield and you draw 4 cards. That's pretty fun too. I built a budget version of this for an upcoming Commander Clash, the one that's coming out this week, later this week. And I built it as an Evoke Elementals deck, where the idea is to run a bunch of elementals that have really cool enter the battlefield or leave the battlefield triggers. Either evoke them and then copy them with Muddle at instant speed with like 1 mana instant speed cantrips, or just like hard cast them or whatever, and then turn into them with Muddle, swing out, myriad triggers, have a blast. There's like Champion of the Path, which is probably the best card in the entire deck, where it's like whenever an elemental enters, it deals that much damage to each opponent, and it's like a 7/2 or something like that. So if you copy it with Muddle and you swing out, you get 2 copies of it entering the battlefield. They all see each other, and you deal like a bajillion damage to all your opponents. It's very, very funny. I love the card. I think it's super open-ended on how you build it. You can build it a bunch of different ways. Super, super fun. You can lean more Spellslinger. You can lean more like token strategies. You can do a whole bunch of fun things with Muddle. One of my favorites, definitely. The only thing that is stopping me from, adding it to my personal collection right now is the fact that I have already 5 Is It Spellslinger decks already in my roster. So it would be insane for me to add another Is It Spellslinger adjacent one, even though it's a little bit different. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I really want to build one for my paper collection. I did play for Commander Clash, so I got a little bit of that out of my system. But man, this one's super fun. Muddle is such a blast. It's another Tomer favorite of mine. It's actually like a tie between Muddle and Mika on which one I like more. I'm leaning Mika right now because I haven't played it yet. I have played a lot of Mono Red Drago Control in my past, but I just played Muddle, so I'll put Muddle number 2 and Mika number 1, but they're definitely 1, 2, and then everything else is significantly behind it, even though, oh my god, there's so many Tomer favorites already. I love that. Okay, here's one that I'm more lukewarm on, okay, finally. There's Nev, the Practical Dean. It's a 3-mana green legendary creature, Merfolk Wizard. It's a 2/2. Creatures you control with counters on them have trample. Whenever you cast your first spell of X in its mana cost this turn, put X +1/+1 counters on Nev. So pretty basic over here. It gives your things with counters trample, which is nice. We've seen that already on other cards too. And then, if you're in an X-Spell deck, then Nev gets really big. It gets a lot of counters on it passively, grows really big. It has trample. It becomes a very thematic beater as well. And if you care about counters going on things, then you have even more synergy potential. But yeah, this one is tailor-made for an X-Spell deck. And it's a great inclusion in the 99 of one, because as a leader of one, I feel like it just doesn't do enough for an X-Spell archetype, especially when the X-Spell archetype has multicolor commanders already that are very, very interesting, more interesting than what Nev is doing, which is just like a big thematic beater. So Nev, absolutely great in the 99 of any X-Spell deck. Okay, next we got Nita, Forum Conciliator. I hope I'm saying it right. It's a 3-mana, black-white, legendary creature, human advisor. It's a 2/3. Whenever you cast a spell you don't own, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Cool. Pay 2 mana, sacrifice another creature, exile target instant or sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard. You may cast it this turn, and mana of any type can be spent to cast that spell. If that spell will be put in the graveyard, exile instead, activate only as a sorcerer. So Nita is a very interesting commander, kind of juggling a whole bunch of different themes together all at once. She is definitely aristocrats deck. You want to be sacrificing creatures to use her ability. She cares specifically about instants and sorceries. Those are the type of things you can steal with her. So maybe you want to mill your opponent's libraries or something like that. So always make sure you have instant sorceries to steal from them. And then when you're casting spells you don't own, you grow your entire team. So there's definitely a lot of build around potential all over the place here. You want to be a little bit of aristocrats. You want to be a little bit of +1/+1 counters. I guess you don't have to be +1/+1 counters. It's bonus. And then you also want to make sure that your opponents have instant sorceries in the graveyard. They generally will. There will be instant sorceries in people's graveyards naturally when you have 3 opponents. But maybe you do a little bit of milling or something on top of that. And then if you go really hard on theft outside of her own ability, for example, if you just have other theft spells, you're growing your team with +1/+1 counters passively, doing a lot of really interesting things. I would say definitely a build around, and a very interesting one at that. Nina is very interesting to me. Maybe it's a little bit overly ambitious. Maybe it's trying to juggle too many pieces, but the fact that it is ambitious is intriguing to me. So definitely a build around. Not quite sure what that 99 will look like, but it looks very exciting to me. Here's a card that annoys me very irrationally. This is Orisa Tide Choreography. It's a 5-mana blue legendary creature Merfolk Bard. It's a 2/2. But this spell costs 3 less to cast, so it only costs 2 mana instead of 5 if creatures you control have total toughness 10 or greater. Very cool. And when it enters, you draw 2 cards. So either it's a 5-mana 2/2 that ETBs draws 2, or it's just a 2-mana 2/2 that ETBs draws 2, which is pretty good on that side of things. Its toughness matters, which is interesting. The art showcases turtles, which is also a toughness matters creature type, but Orisa not only is not a turtle, which is devastating for me, she also doesn't have higher toughness. Come on. If this was a turtle, I don't know, it could have been like a fractal turtle or something like that was like a 2/4, and it was a turtle. Oh, I would have been in love. I would have been in love. I would have it would have been an instant slam dunk in my partner's turtle deck, in Haldigo's turtle deck. And wow, what a missed opportunity. What a missed opportunity. Wizards of the Coast. Why? Why do you hate me in particular? No, I'm saying the artwork is very cute. The card is very fun. It's not particularly powerful or anything, but oh man, it could have been a turtle. It could have had high toughness. What could have been? This one's another maybe for me. In some decks that have high toughness, there's going to be a 2-mana 2/2 that draws 2 cards, which probably is good enough for those homes, and maybe not. I don't know. Next, we have one of the first ever common legendaries. It's not the first ever common legendary. There's a couple that already exist, but it's notable because we rarely see legendaries at common. It's Page Loose Leaf. It's a 2-mana colorless legendary artifact creature construct. It's a 0/2. It taps to add 1 colorless mana, and it has Grandeur, which is a really old mechanic that I didn't think would ever return, but here we are. Discard another card named Page. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal an instant or sorcery card. Put that card into your hand and the rest at the bottom of your library in a random order. So the problem with legendaries at common is if you're like drafting them or something, it's really awkward if you pick up more than one of them in your draft deck. And obviously it's going to be a little bit awkward in 1v1 too, especially if it's like a low cost legendary where like you want to play one early, so you want to have a lot of copies of them in your deck, but then you can't play subsequent ones because of the legend rule. That's kind of awkward. And Grandeur is a really clever way of getting around that negative. Page, you definitely want to have multiple copies of, at least in like 1v1 constructed, because it's a really good 2-drop and gets a lot worse later on in the game. You want to go like turn 2, play Page, and now it's a ramp little thingy. But if you've already done that and you have extras in your deck, you can actually just discard them for 0 mana, and it just replaces itself with instant sorcery. That's really, really cool. In Commander, obviously, this is not a very good card. I guess if you want a colorless deck that can just, if you have a colorless deck and you want to have a guaranteed mana rock on turn 2, then Page is actually kind of interesting in that regard. But I think there's just better colorless options out there. And then do you want this in the 99 of any pre-existing decks? Maybe if you're desperate for more mana dorks, I guess, then maybe this can show up. It's fine. It's not great, but it's fine. So maybe it does see some play in Commander. But obviously in Commander, we're not going to be using the Grandeur ability, or it's fairly difficult to do so at least. But yeah, it's a very clever design. I really like it, but I'm less enthused about it in Commander. I don't know. This is a maybe for me. In a Commander deck that just really desperately wants every single mana dork possible, then Page is fine. But other than that, it's, who knows. Next, we have the secondary commander for the Quandrix precon. It's Primo the Unbounded. It's X, double green, and blue for a legendary creature, Fractal Wolf. It's a 0/0 trample. It enters with twice X +1/+1 counters on it, so it gets really big. And whenever one or more creatures you control with base power 0 deal combat damage to a player, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token, put a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the damage dealt. So this is kind of like your dedicated fractal commander, I guess. It is a fractal itself. It makes fractals, and it's interesting in that it cares about base power 0. So I don't know how many cards in green, blue that are playable that have base power 0 that you're smacking in with, but definitely fractals. fit that role very well. So it looks like a pretty straightforward, like, fractal commander. Is it good? Probably not. Probably not. It can make some big fractals, but there are some hoops to jump through on it. It doesn't generate that much immediate value, though it does get pretty big by itself. Like, if you just cast this for X equals 5, then it's a 10/10 with trample. That's pretty impressive by itself. And when it's swinging in, it makes a big fractal by itself. So I don't know. Maybe it can be pretty good as a commander, but I see this more as a great card in the 99 of X-Spell decks. Again, it's just a big X-Spell that brings the heat. It just deals a lot of damage. It makes a board presence, and that's really fun in the 99. But I feel like it's less exciting in the command zone, unless you're just going for a fractal deck. And then I guess that makes sense here. Yeah, Primo is a really cool card. It makes big fractals. It's a big creature. It's a cool X-Spell. It's an interesting payoff. But I think it's better in the 99 than the command zone. We get to the Prismari Elder Dragon, the second of the 5 in the cycle. And this is Prismari, the Inspiration. It's a 7 mana, blue-red legendary creature, Elder Dragon. It's a 7/7 with flying, ward, pay 5 life, and a very, very powerful text. Instant and sorcery spells you cast have Storm. So basically, Prismari reads, if Prismari is on the battlefield and gets to untap with mana, that player is going to win the game, right? You're going to untap, you're going to cast a bunch of instant sorceries in a single turn. They all have Storm. So at that point, it's pretty trivial to find a way to win the game. And if you're including Prismari in your deck, you probably are guaranteed to win the game. You've built your deck around the possibility of having it untap and just winning with a bunch of instant sorceries in your hand. Now, as scary and game-winning as Prismari is, if you get to untap with it, the problem is that you're going to need to untap with it if it's your commander. It's a 7-drop in Izzet colors, which are not the best colors for casting 7-drop Elder Dragons. It's not very well known for doing that. And then it doesn't do anything on the battlefield by itself. It doesn't cast any instant sorceries for free. Typically speaking, you're going to need more mana or to live an entire turn cycle before you actually get to reap the benefit of its very busted game-winning ability. And that's going to be a problem if it's a commander. In the 99, I feel like it has more potential, like if you can reanimate it, or if you could cheat into play, like a Through the Breach or something like that, then maybe you could combo off a little bit easier with it and win the game on the same turn. But as a commander, I feel like this is a little bit copium to try and get this out. It would be very difficult. And if you do manage to untap with Prismari and that's your commander, you probably deserve winning the game at that point. In the 99, I think it has a little bit more potential. But yeah, you need to cheat it out because 7 mana and then passing, that's unlikely to happen, I imagine. Prismari definitely wins the game if you get to untap with it, but that is the trick. The next Elder Dragon, though, is not as all or nothing. It's far more consistent. This is Quandrix the Proof. This is a 6-mana green-blue legendary creature Elder Dragon. It's a 6/6 with flying trample, and it has Cascade. So it immediately cascades when you cast it, so you immediately get some value when you cast it, and instant sorcery spells you cast from your hand have Cascade. So it's not to the same level of craziness as Prismari, where everything has Storm, but everything having Cascade is still very, very, very good, and it costs less mana, and it's in green, so it's easier to ramp out, and it also has Cascade by itself, so even if Quandrix dies immediately, you still got something out of the deal, and you probably can recast it much more easily. So I think Quandrix is a very powerful commander and can also show up in the 99 of spellslingery Simic decks. So yeah, I feel like this one has more homes for it, and probably the best home is going to be in the command zone. So Quandrix the Proof, I'm going to put you in great in the command zone. Oh, we'll put it over here. Quintorius is another new commander that I absolutely love. This is the Lorehold Face Commander. It's 4 mana, red and a white, for a legendary planeswalker Quintorius. And by the way, yes, it can be your commander because it says so on the card. So it's a legendary planeswalker Quintorius. Whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, create a 3/2 red and white spear creature token. It has a loyalty of 5. It has +1 loyalty. You may discard a card. If you do draw 2 cards, then mill. Very nice. And -4, spirits you control gain double strike and vigilance until end of turn. So the power of Quintorius is all about its static ability. Whenever one or more cards are leaving your graveyard, aka the lore hold mechanic, you get a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. And when a deck is dedicated to triggering this ability, you're pooping out so many 3/2 red spirit creature tokens, it's ridiculous. And the other thing that is really powerful about Quintorius is, let me say it again, 2026 Face Commander design. It's a card draw engine in the command zone. The +1 ability, you discard a card, you draw 2 cards. So it's card draw. And then also on top of it, it's furthering your own game plan, the lore hold game plan of having cards leave your graveyard by milling. It doesn't have cards leave the graveyard by itself. It doesn't trigger itself, but it does set itself up for success by milling cards into the graveyard. Those are more cards that you can then exile. So every single time you +1 Quintorius, you're essentially putting 2 cards into the graveyard and you're drawing cards. And then, as they leave, you just make a bunch of spirit creature tokens. The thing that makes the static so powerful, though, is there's a lot of cards in red-white that basically say whenever you're discarding a card or whenever a card goes into the graveyard, you can immediately exile it, or remove it from the graveyard somehow. So, for example, there is Currency Converter, which whenever you discard a card, you get to exile it, and then you can transform it into other sort of resources. There's Bag of Holding. Again, whenever you discard a card, you exile it. I think there's like 2 other ones that I'm blanking on. But yeah, any of those cards on the battlefield, and you have some sort of ways of discarding constantly. Quintorius discards 1 card per turn, but there's going to be a lot of other ways of discarding too. That just means with that on the battlefield, a discard outlet on the battlefield, Quintorius is going to be triggering like crazy, making a huge army of 3/2 spirit tokens. And then when you're done discarding and drawing cards and milling, the -4 ability, all your 3/2s are now double strike vigilancers, and you can win the game. It's very impressive, and it's also pretty unique. Like, we don't see this like red-white graveyard matters theme that often. I think it's basically just Lorehold that does it. And on top of that, it adds a little bit of a spirit sub-theme going on too. So it's just like breaking new ground. It's a very powerful commander, and it's doing things in a very different way, and I really like it. Quintorius is definitely my favorite face commander, bar none. Of all the precons leading the charge, Quintorius is my favorite. I think Lorehold is just so excellent in this set. It's so different, and it's also just so interesting at the same time. We move on from my favorite face commander for the precons to my least favorite. It's Rutha, Mastering the Moment, the face commander of the Prismari precon. It's a 4-mana, blue-red, legendary creature, orc sorcerer, 3/4. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, create an XX blue and red elemental creature token with flying and haste, where X is the greatest mana value among instant and sorcery spells you've cast this turn. So Rutha is essentially it's Spellslinger. It cares about instant sorceries, and it also cares particularly about high mana value. The larger the mana value of the instant sorceries you're casting each turn, before combat at least, the bigger the elemental token she's going to be producing. And it has flying and haste, so it can immediately get in there for damage. That's pretty fine, but what I noticed about the Prismari precon is it had the weakest 99. It had a lot of really sus choices in the 99 that added a lot of inconsistency to the deck. And so when you have an inconsistent 99, you really want a value engine in the command zone that, especially a card draw engine in the command zone, to smooth out your draws, to kind of avoid the bad cards that don't really work well in the 99 and just find more of the cards that do work and make the inconsistency go away, smooth it over with duct tape. And Rutha doesn't do that. She doesn't draw cards. That's why I found her a little bit disappointed as a face commander. I also kind of think, like, I don't know, just making a big creature token is not the most interesting thing you can do. Is she powerful though? Yes, she is definitely very powerful if you pair her with the right cards. For example, she is really strong with extra combat spells, and possibly the best extra combat spell to pair her with is Full Throttle. Full Throttle you can cast before combat. you will get 3 combats on that turn. And that means every single combat, Rutha is going to be making a 6/6 flying elemental creature token with haste. And you get 3 combats. So that's 3 6/6s. And that's a total of like 36 damage just with the elemental creature tokens. And they have flying and they have haste. So they're more likely to be punching people in the face. It's 36 damage divided amongst your opponents or to just one opponent's face and just killing them off of one spell. So Rutha definitely is very powerful, but I don't think she's very good for the stock list. And I just find like, I don't know, the payoff being I make a big token just less appealing for me. I'm much more excited about Muddle because I feel like there's more cool things you can do with her. Whereas Rutha, the thing that she does every single time is just make a big creature, which I don't know, it's good. It can be very powerful, but it's less exciting to me, I guess. So Rutha is definitely great in the command zone. Like she will kill people very, very quickly. It's not my cup of tea as much as like Muddle or something like that, but I can't deny that she's very, very effective at what she's doing. Next we got, I think, my favorite uncommon legendary of this like prepared cycle. This is Sonar, Unfinished Genius. It's just 2 mana, red and a blue. Legendary creature, Goblin Sorcerer. It's a 0/4, which is a pretty decent for blocking. It enters prepared, and you can tap it, create a treasure token, activate only if you've cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn. And the spell it can cast is Wild Idea. It's 5 mana. It's a sorcery. Search your library for an instant or sorcery card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. So 5 mana for a sorcery speed tutor is not the most mana efficient, obviously, or you're paying a premium for this ability. But what I really like about Sonar is that its baseline, ignoring the spell itself, is actually pretty okay. It's not great, but it's okay. Like it's a 2-drop that in a Spellslinger deck, assuming you're casting at least 1 instant sorcery each turn, it's making a treasure. So it's a 2-drop that is essentially like a mana dork. You can think of it in your Izzet decks. Is it the best mana dork for Spellslinger? Obviously not. There are better options out there. But, you know, it is a mana dork that is doing an okay job. And then on top of that, it also comes with tutor ability. Is that one of the strongest, cards you can include in Izzet Spellslinger and Commander? No, but I think it's pretty okay in the 99. If you want another 2-drop thematic, ramp option in Izzet Spellslinger, this is a pretty good one. And on top of that, if you have the extra mana laying around, you can tutor up a big instant sorcery that you need. So this one is another, I don't know if it's great in the 99, but I think it's the best out of all the maybes. I think it's definitely the best out of all the maybes. And they could sometimes make the cut in Izzet Spellslinger decks. Next, we've got the secondary commander for the Silver Quill Precon. This is Scrib the Obligator. It's a 4-mana white-black legendary creature, Inkling Bird. It's a 2/3 flying death touch. Whenever Scrib enters or attacks, create a white aura enchantment token named Contract attached to target creature an opponent controls. The token has enchant creature, and whenever enchanted creature attacks, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn if it's attacking one of your opponents. Otherwise, its controller loses 2 life. Scrib is generating aura enchantment tokens every single turn when it ETBs and when it attacks. So if it has haste, you could even generate 2 auras on a single turn, which is quite nice. Or if you have blink, again, more ways of generating enchantment tokens. And the tokens, they're not forcing your opponents to attack each other. They're not goading, so they're probably going to piss off your opponents a little bit less, but they're kind of like a subtle nudge in terms of hitting each other. If they attack each other, they get a power boost, which is great. It's great for your opponents, obviously, because they get to deal more damage to their opponents. But it's also great for you because it means your opponents are losing life even faster. And if they attack you, they can absolutely attack you, but they just lose 2 life in the process. So it's a little bit of a deterrent over there. And I like that. I like how subtle that is. It's not in your face with the goad effect, where goad, it takes away the player agency. They must attack with it. This one is like a, hey, I'm going to help you out even. I'm going to buff up your creature. And if you attack me, no big deal, I guess, but you're going to lose some life and it's going to add up over time. And I really like that. I also like that it is also a very just mana efficient aura generator. Just enter an attack trigger on a 4-drop. It's quite nice. It's not doing anything busted. It's not as strong as Killian, far from it. It costs more mana even than Killian for some reason. I don't know why that is. It doesn't draw cards like he does. It doesn't force combat like he does. It doesn't remove blockers like he does. But this one's far more chill. So if Killian's feeling a little bit oppressive to you, or you just want a really cool Owl as your commander, I feel like Skriv is an excellent option to do so. At the very least, though, if you're in Orzhov colors and you're playing auras, or you're going a little bit political, any sort of political deck, I think Skriv is a great inclusion there. So I think power-wise, I think Skriv is better off in the 99 of like a political deck or an aura deck. But if Killian's feeling a little bit oppressive for your play group, or you just want to be under the radar a little bit more than Killian does, Skriv is a great replacement for it. Okay, this is an exciting one. Another Elder Dragon. Spoiler alerts, I love all of them. Silverquill the Disputant is possibly my favorite out of all of them. It's a 4-mana, white-black legendary creature Elder Dragon. It's a 4/4 flying vigilance, and each instant and sorcery spell you cast have casualty 1. So that's a Capenna mechanic. As you cast that spell, you may sacrifice a creature with power 1 or greater. When you do, copy the spell, and you may choose new targets for the copy. So this is essentially what is it? Angelo? It's the Grixis commander from Capenna. It also had casualty to copy instant sorceries, I believe. And Silverquill does the same thing. I think it costs 1 more mana. It's in different colors, but I think the casualty costs less. It's 1 versus like 2, I believe. And that's very exciting. Spellslinger in Orzhov colors is not something you typically see. And it's mixing together kind of like the classic black mechanic of aristocrats with instants and sorceries, merging them together in a really cool way. And I really like it. I really like the combination here. I like that it's also in colors that you typically don't associate with Spellslinger as much. A+ design. Totally love it. I think this card's very, very exciting and very, very powerful. Aristocrats, Spellslinger. Very cool. I wish I could put everything as Tomer favorites, but you know what? This is my tier list. I can put everything as Tomer favorites. That's at the bottom of Tomer favorites. Unfortunately, I could not play it on Commander Clash. Morgan beat me to it. I think the moment it was spoiled in previews, Morgan shot called it way before I even was thinking about choosing a commander. So I can't play it on Commander Clash, but that doesn't stop me from doing a budget brew around it, which I probably will. Tam Observance Sequencer. It's a 4-mana green-blue legendary creature Gorgon Wizard. It's a 4/3 with landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, Tam becomes repaired. So it's basically repaired every single turn. And then the spell you cast is Deep Sight. It's green-blue sorcery. You draw a card and you gain 1 life. So this is basically Tatyova is too strong for my Tatyova's too strong for my play group. They asked me to switch it to Tam, and I switched it to Tam to be more chill. That's what Tam reads to me. It really is just like a watered down Tatyova, which also was an uncommon, by the way. I think that's still fine, though. Like, if you play a 4-drop and then every single subsequent turn, if you're in, like, Simic Landfall, you always have mana to go around. So you can constantly use Deep Sight to keep drawing cards and gaining life. Obviously, you would much prefer just playing a land and drawing a card and getting 1 life instead of paying 2 mana, but it's not the worst. Is it going to show up in Simic Landfall decks? Again, probably not unless you're trying to power down your deck. So this is another maybe for me. It's literally like, if you have a Tatyova deck and you want to power down, literally the easiest thing you can do is you just take Tatyova, put her in the 99, and put Tam in the command zone. Or you just take out Tatyova entirely. And then you have the exact same deck with same ability too in the command zone. It's just much more nerfed. And I think in some play groups, that's actually going to be fine. If you want to play like lower bracket 2 or something, you can just swap Tam out, swap Tam in for Tatyova or whatever. So yeah, I like it, but it's not very powerful. The Dawning Archaic is a massive 10-mana creature, legendary creature avatar. It's a 7/7. However, it costs 1 less to cast for each instant sorcery card in your graveyard, so it can cost as little as 0 mana. And by the way, if this is your commander, it's probably not going to be a commander, but if it is, this cost reduction also applies to the commander tax. So if you have to recast Dawning Archaic 1 time and you have 12 instant sorceries in your graveyard, it's still 0 mana, which is kind of neat. It also has reach, and whenever it attacks, you may cast target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that spell would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. So this is a really cool, like, Spellslinger graveyard style strategy. If you just fill your deck with instant sorceries, which is kind of like red decks kind of do that already, like just big scores and stuff like that, things that require you to discard and then draw afterwards, already kind of fill your graveyard with instant sorceries just by existing. So Spellslinger kind of does this anyway. And then you can just play this for like 0 mana, and then it's a 7/7 of reach, and then if it manages to attack, you get to start recurring spells from your graveyard and casting them for free. That seems pretty good. It needs haste. Definitely needs haste, but again, if you're in red, that should be very easy to actually accomplish in like a red-based Spellslinger deck. If you're colorless, this is kind of interesting too. I have no idea if there's enough instant sorceries to make this a 0-costed commander. I don't think it's possible, but maybe it is. Maybe it is. I don't know. This would be a very interesting commander, but I think it is actually very, very good in the 99 of like, is it Spellslinger or something like that, where like if you can give it haste very consistently, then it's like a 0 mana, 7/7, bam, smack somebody's, start casting spells for free from your graveyard. Seems good to me. So Dawning Archaic, I'm going to say great in the 99. The last of the Elder Dragons is also incredibly impressive, maybe even the strongest even. It's Witherbloom the Bouncer. It's an 8-mana, green-black, legendary creature Elder Dragon. It's a 5/5, but it has affinity for creatures. So it costs 1 less to cast for each creature you control. So it can cost as little as 2 mana if you have 6 or more creatures on the battlefield. It has Flying, Death Touch, and instant sorcery spells you cast have affinity for creatures. So Witherbloom wants you to go wide with creatures, probably with instant sorceries that make creature tokens, and it rewards you by giving a massive mana discount to all your instant and sorcery spells. So again, this is a type of deck like Aziza where you want to focus on instant sorceries that generate creature tokens. The more, the merrier. And then you want to have big spells that you can really leverage the affinity for creatures for. So once you have Witherbloom on the battlefield and you have like 6 or more creatures on the battlefield, you can start casting huge X spells and stuff like that, like Genesis Wave and whatnot. It even has a combo, Sprout Swarm. If you have Witherbloom on the battlefield and I don't know, some amount of creatures. I don't have Sprout Swarm on the screen right now, but it's going to be on screen with Editor Me doing it in the future. When you have some amount of creatures, you can literally just cast it with buyback for 0 mana every single time, over and over again, and you make infinite saprolings, and then eventually you can like swing out and win the game. Very, very strong commander. Very, very strong legendary to build around. It's fine in the 99 as well too for certain decks, but yeah, this is definitely a build around for me, and it's arguably one of the best because yeah, the mana discount is so good. The only thing that feels bad is if you're in a meta that is very board wipe heavy. If you can't keep creatures on the battlefield, then Witherbloom gets a lot worse. But in a typical play group that's not like board wipe decks all the time, Witherbloom is kind of insane because if it dies, well, you just have a bunch of more creatures on the battlefield and you can keep recasting it for as little as 2 mana, which is kind of wild. And then its ability you can immediately use the turn you cast Witherbloom because it gives everything a massive discount. So yeah. Very, very strong commander. I would definitely be terrified of any Witherbloom commander showing up at a pod. Make sure you have enough board wipes. That's all I'm saying. Okay, Zephi returns with a band. Zephi in the Tempest is a 7-mana red-blue legendary creature, human bard sorcerer. It's a 5/7, and once during each of your turns, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand without paying its mana cost. Now, I actually find Zephi a little bit more scary than the Prismari Elder Dragon because, like I said, with the Prismari Elder Dragon, it's a 7-drop creature in Izzet colors, which it has a game-winning upside. Obviously, all your instant sorceries have Storm, but it's going to be very difficult to get Prismari on the battlefield and then pop off on the same turn. Whereas Zephi, it's a 7-drop. It costs a lot of mana, but if you have a big instant sorcery spell in your hand already, when you cast Zephi, you get to melee cast it. So you get almost guaranteed some value as long as Zephi enters the battlefield. So it's much more reliable. It doesn't always win the game immediately, but like if you're like a Haymaker.deck style instant sorcery deck, then Zephi is a little bit more consistent, a little bit more reliable value. That said, is he best in the command zone or the 99? I think he's better in the 99. 7 mana Izzet commander is just hard, you know? It's just a lot. Whereas in the 99, if you're in a high mana value matters deck like Rutha, for example, then you play it late game, you know, you draw it late game or whatever, and then you drop down a big instant sorcery immediately afterwards. That feels pretty good to me. And then, you know, the more turns it gets to stick around, the more value you get from it. So yeah, I can see Zephyr being pretty good in the 99, and we could shove Prismari lower on the ranking, I guess. And the final new legendary from Secrets of Strixhaven is Zimone Infinite Analyst, which is the face commander of the Quandrix precon. It's a 3-mana green-blue legendary creature human wizard. It's a 0/4, and it says the first spell you cast with X in its mana cost each turn costs 1 less to cast for each +1/+1 counter on Zimone. And whenever you cast your first spell with X in its mana cost each turn, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Zimone. So Zimone is all about X spells. You cast a bunch of X spells, Zimone grows with counters, and the bigger Zimone gets, the bigger the discount you have on your X spells. And this can get out of control very, very quickly, especially if you have ways of just dumping a bunch of counters on Zimone right off the bat. So then that mana discount gets huge. It also gets even more powerful if you can cast X spells at instant speed, because it's the first spell each turn, but that also counts your opponent's turns as well. So if you cast like a green sunset for 10 on your turn, for example, and you get a bunch of permanents on the battlefield, and then on your opponent's turn, you cast immediately like a blue sun zenith for like a bajillion 2, Zimone also applies her huge mana discount. Zimone gets out of control really, really fast. She grows herself just by casting a bunch of X spells. You can obviously put counters on her to expedite the process too. And then when she has like 5 or more counters on her, oh boy, those X spells are going to be huge. And like I said, if you manage to cast spells on your opponent's turn as well, the sky's the limit with Zimone. She's definitely a build around though, or I guess you can also put her in the other X-Spell commanders. I think there's 2 very popular ones in Simic colors. There's Magus Lucia Kane, which I think is the most popular one. And then there's also the Zigzara, which is a Sultai one. And I think that one's like focused on Hydras or something. Editor me is showing them on the screen, but I'm just remembering them offhandedly. So yeah, Zimone is a terrifying new commander, but also terrifying in the 99 of the other few X-Spell commander decks that can house her. And that's the entire list, my friends. It was pretty thorough. Sorry if I rambled a little bit too much, but you know how I get. I get very passionate about commander cards. Surprisingly, this time, nobody in the class of 2026 failed. 0 Fs being given out. So good job to everybody in the class of 2026. There are a couple maybes, and they're all uncommons and a common. And otherwise, I see a lot of really, really great cards in the 99. I see a lot of cards in the command zone. And then, selfishly for me, there's a lot of new commanders that I am super pumped about. Perhaps too many, because that means my wallet's going to be hurting. And I think my 2 favorites are definitely Mika, Reader of Ruins, and Muddle, which might show up in my personal collection at some point. And I gotta have a pest commander. They're so cute. They're so cute. So yeah, I think Secrets of Strixhaven kind of blew me away. It surprised me how much I personally like the set. And yeah, I'm really, really excited to start brewing and getting my hands on the new cards. I hope you enjoyed this rundown. Let me know what you think about my analysis of these cards. Let me know if there's any cool things you would do with the maybe pile, especially because I feel like they have potential, but I'm just not quite sure what I would do with them. I'll have the rest of the precon upgrades coming out later this week. Hopefully by the weekend, I'll have all 5 done. And if you like this sort of content, like and subscribe. And until next time, friends, see ya.